Yes! 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 But you just watched was my reaction to clearing Venus, one of the hardest modded Celeste rooms ever made, after a 120-hour grind. It's my favorite room from any mod I've ever played, and for extremely good reason. It's got some of the most consistent and fun gameplay ever, and for being a map at Yellow Grandmaster Plus 2, it's an extremely accessible challenge for almost any kind of experienced modded player. However, to someone who doesn't know how the room flows together, it kinda just looks like madness. So, let's change that. Today, I'll be going through Venus and explaining how every part of the room works, covering the inputs at play as well as some of the fundamentals behind them. So, let's get started. To really dive into the grid of this room and the entirety of its corresponding map, Most LXVI by Izzy, we first have to talk about input buffering. Basically, if you perform an input in Celeste that Madeline isn't currently capable of doing, but she will be in a specific frame window after that input, she'll still perform said input on the very first frame she's capable of doing it. As an example, here I've jumped into the air, and I'm going to press the jump button a few frames before I land. In the case of jumping, I have a total of 4 buffer frames as well as the frame I land, for a total of 5 frames, to input the jump such that Madeline performs it on the very first frame she's grounded. Most inputs in Celeste can be buffered, and many maps such as LXVI make heavy use of this mechanic to make otherwise frame-perfect inputs much more lenient. Celeste runs at 60 frames per second, so many inputs in this map can be anywhere from 1/20th of a second to 1/12th of a second tight, which might still sound hard, but that's light years ahead of 1/60th of a second. In LXVI, buffers are also set up through dash crystals. When Madeline touches a dash crystal, the game will freeze for 3 frames before resuming, a time in which we can buffer an input for the first frame after it. This leaves us with 4 frames to perform any input in what is called a freeze frame buffer. Another important component of this room is demo dashing, or crouch dashing. This can be directly linked to a key in the controls menu, and demo dashing, as opposed to normal dash, removes the top segment of Madeline's hitbox for its duration, effectively halving it. We can use this to get through some extremely precise gaps that would otherwise be impossible, and LXVI especially uses this in mass. Venus begins immediately with an upright demo in between this bubble and wall, which immediately puts Madeline in a unique state. This is called retention tech, and its technical details are a little complicated, but to keep it simple, the game is basically storing Madeline in the bubble and outside of it at once. When we reach the floor at the far right and perform a super dash to the left by dashing normally and jumping immediately after, Madeline's position is set back to the bubble, and the dash releases her from it while conserving the speed that she gained while outside of it. This boost, combined with continuing the whole jump as we ascend to slow fall, allows us to make it to the next input. Here, we need to buffer a neutral jump, that is, jumping without holding a horizontal direction, off of this wall. Because we need to buffer this jump while still having held the jump button before it, the easiest approach is to use 2 jump buttons. We hold the first one when we perform the super, and press the second one here to achieve a max height jump. From here, we grab onto the Dream Zipper at the peak of our boost, and it pulls us up into another dash crystal. Holding right, we have to buffer a dash and jump to the right, which pushes us underneath the Dream Zipper as we continue to ascend. By buffering another jump, we can corner kick, that is, kick off the bottom corner of the Dream Zipper while facing away from the spikes, and reach the next dash crystal by holding jump during our ascent. We now have to buffer a demo dash to the left, and immediately buffer a climb jump after that to corner boost off the top of the Dream Zipper. A max height jump leads us to the next dash crystal, where we very simply buffer a down left dash and left demo. We want to start holding right as soon as we perform this demo, as when we hit this block here and break it, we want to use the vertical boost to perform a corner kick off of this wall, and use a max height jump from it to reach this dash crystal, which we buffer a down dash from. We then bubble up to this part, which is another section where it's highly recommended to use 2 jump buttons. We have to, while holding left, buffer a jump off of this wall, and then off of this corner. Holding jump the entire time allows us to grab onto this wall, finally giving us a momentary breather. Next, we drop onto the Dream Zipper and crouch down to avoid hitting the spike. Next, and this is very important, we uncrouch afterwards before we hit this dash crystal. We then buffer a downright dash through the Dream Zipper, continue holding down right, and upon hitting the crystal here, buffer a dream jump which we use alongside swapping the holding left and jump to get up here. Now, this next part looks like another freeze frame buffer, but it actually isn't. Basically, we need 3 dashes to get through here, which means that we want to make it past this crystal here while still crouched, perform a dash to the right to collect it, and proceed onwards. This is a particularly difficult trick that can be hard to get used to, but just focus on trying to obtain something close to this position. You still get more than enough of a frame window for this to not be any more precise than the rest of the room. Now, we have to buffer the next 2 dashes through these spinners, or we'll die on the very next frame. The first dash has to be uncrouched, because the second one has to be a demo, and you actually cannot buffer a demo out of a demo. After this, we buffer a neutral corner boost off of this wall, continue holding jump, and upon hitting this crystal, start holding left. This redirects us and we immediately have to buffer another jump to corner boost off of this tile. When we reach this tile, we have to buffer a neutral jump off of it to be boosted up to this wall, which we grab at the height of our jump. Performing a full jump off of the wall, we demo left at the height of our ascent until we hit the dash crystal, at which point we hold right and jump to redirect our momentum into this crystal. We buffer the next 3 inputs right after each other, a downright dash, jump, and upright demo to make it past this part. After falling, we buffer a demo to the right from this crystal, and then buffer a neutral jump off of this corner tile. From here, we want to hold jump for the remainder of this section. Upon hitting the dash crystal, we want to buffer a demo to the left and then buffer a climb jump, using our second jump button, off of this tile to corner boost. We then hit this crystal, do the exact same thing to the right, and at the final crystal, perform an up left demo into a buffered corner boost. We stop holding any horizontal direction at this point until we hit this dash crystal, at which point we buffer holding right and grab onto this wall. Also, if you happen to miss the crystal but still reach the wall, it is still possible to reach it by turning away from the wall for just a moment. Finally, we climb jump up to this wall, move over to the left, and drop down. Congratulations! You've officially beaten the first, and arguably hardest, third of this room. Let's keep going. The second third begins with this move, called an instant reverse delayed ultra. Basically, whenever dashing down diagonally, Madeline obtains a 1.2 times speed boost. For this boost to actually trigger, however, she first needs to touch the ground. This means that we can effectively delay when we get this additional momentum by performing, for instance, a corner boost to keep us airborne. A better visualization of this tech can actually be seen in the hardest room of the level before LXVI, CPVL. Here, we perform a reverse ultra by dashing down left into this corner and jumping off to the right, which we follow up with a buffered downright dash. Then we corner boost here, delaying the 1.2 times speed boost until Madeline touches the ground here. In this case, we call this an instant tech because we have to do every input for it right after the next. We downright dash over to this crystal, buffer a jump left in the freeze frames, and buffer a down left dash into a corner boost when we hit this crystal. By continuing to hold down left and jump as we move, we'll perfectly land in this gap and hit the next crystal. Here we buffer a jump in the freeze frames made possible due to coyote frames. Coyote frames are the frames right after leaving a grounded state where the game still allows us to jump, and since we just slid off of a tile, we're able to use this to ascend here. Continuing to hold down left and jump, we buffer a jump off the edge of this wall here, and, while still holding jump, swap to moving right and grab onto its edge as we return. Next come a few basic freeze frame buffers. We first demo right, then dash up, demo left, and then back right. The reason we're able to do 2 consecutive demos here is because we're only doing the second one in the freeze frames of this crystal, meaning that we aren't performing the input on the first possible frame we could. We then do a normal upright dash and buffer a demo into a corner boost, where we continue to hold right until making it to the far end. Next, we perform a wall bounce by dashing up and buffering a jump to gain our height boost on the first possible frame. Holding jump and grab, we then latch onto this dream zipper and demo through it at the freeze frames of this crystal. Now, there's a couple methods to do this next part, which the community infamously refers to as skinny dipper for reasons. The way I used in my clear is to immediately grab the other side of the dream zipper and allow it to pull you into this crystal. However, it's also viable to remain completely neutral and hit the crystal yourself instead. Either way, we buffer a downright in these freeze frames through the dream zipper, buffer a downright to the left on the first possible frame, and then buffer a jump off of this platform in the freeze frames of this crystal. Remaining horizontally neutral and holding jump from here will allow us to hit this double dash crystal, from which we can dash upright into the dream zipper and buffer a reverse demo dream hyper, which is a hyper dash out of a dream block, to the left while holding jump. We now reach the infamous crouch climb section of Venus, which can be a big hurdle for new players. Basically, we want to maintain our crouch state while climbing up this part so that we can enter the crouch size gap at the top, so we're forced to perform full height crouch climb jumps at the marked tiles. However, if we do this without any further attention, we run out of stamina long before we reach the end. So, we have to learn about wall boosts. When climb jumping up a wall in a horizontally neutral state, if you turn away from the wall in the first 11 frames afterwards, the game will fully refund Madeline the stamina she just used. In this room, we have to perform 7 wall boosts while in a crouch state to make it up. Note that you always have to be horizontally neutral when performing a climb jump, and make use of the label tiles to prepare your next inputs. After reaching this gap, we demo to the right and grab onto the end of the stream zipper. We then let go and drop onto the edge of this one, which pulls us to the left. Landing here isn't buffered, but you have more than enough frames to make it over extremely consistently. Now, we grab this dash crystal and align Madeline at around this position on the dream zipper. The lineup isn't pixel perfect, so you can definitely be a bit off. Whenever we're ready, we can upright demo through the dream zippers and buffer a dream double jump. We can most consistently do this by holding our first jump button around here, right before we leave our dream state, and then pressing our second jump button a tiny bit after leaving it. This maximizes our height and pulls us into this gap, where we quickly jump at the indicated tiles to make it up to this wall. Note that you should not be buffering the second jump, as you have to do it a little later than that would make you. To reset our subpixels, we can climb jump into the top of this tile while holding right. This isn't strictly necessary, but will help to avoid any inconsistencies in the upcoming sections. We then hold left and perform a full jump into this crystal, where we buffer a right demo hyper off of this surface, jumping and redirecting to the left on the first possible frame. We can then buffer an up left demo into this gap to once again obtain a retention state. Immediately after this dash, we need to become horizontally neutral, and after a moment of being on this tile, we begin holding left and jump to carry our momentum over these spikes. Once again, this isn't a buffer, but the timing is very lenient once you get used to it. We begin holding down left as soon as possible and perform a full jump off of the edge of this tile when we land. Holding down our first jump button and down left the whole while, we use our second jump button to buffer jumps off of this tile and this wall on the first possible frames. When we're about to jump off of this wall, we can swap from holding down left to holding right instead, and we'll buffer a wall bounce in the freeze frames of this crystal. After this wall bounce, we hold right and jump, and buffer a demo here into this gap. Going up this section with a very simple crouch climb, make sure you're crouch climbing off the right side of the wall, because it isn't possible to do so off the left if you're able to off the right. We then drop down and grab this crystal, jump to this wall here, reset our subpixels again by climb jumping while holding right, and then demo left and buffer an up dash. Here, we perform what's known as a dash bounce. Basically, when wall bouncing, the duration in which you're given a height boost is slightly longer than the duration of a dash. This means that if you buffer a dash out of a wall bounce, such that it occurs fast enough afterwards, the vertical boost of the wall bounce can still be active when the dash ends, and so the game will give you the remainder of it then. Here, we do exactly this, buffering both a jump and left demo in the freeze frames of this crystal to receive a small height boost at the end and make it up. Note that you should be buffering both inputs in the freeze frames. You absolutely cannot buffer the wall bounce before the crystal. And finally, we've made it to the last third. This is where your nerves are going to skyrocket, so let's figure this beast out. To enter the bubble above us, we want to do a non-max height climb jump such that we're able to buffer a full climb jump at the top corner of this wall. If we try to do a full jump first, sometimes our vertical positioning won't allow us to do the second jump on the frame we need to. Now, we can either do the left or right side of this third first. I'll be starting with the left, since most players find that to be substantially harder, but feel free to use whichever order works best for you. We actually don't want to fast bubble to the left this one time, because fast bubbling actually makes the first frame you can dash out slightly later than normal. Hence, we hold left and let the bubble carry us as normal, then buffer an up dash out of it. We then demo in these freeze frames and immediately begin holding right, allowing us to buffer a corner kick off the edge of the stream zipper. By continuing to hold right and jump throughout our ascent, we reach the crystal here and dash right, buffering a jump on the first possible frame off of this stream zipper and holding jump and right until we hit the next crystal. In these freeze frames, we demo left back onto the dream zipper and only buffer a jump after hitting the next crystal. Holding left and jump until we make contact with this dash crystal, we dash up and buffer both inputs of a demo dash bounce to the right in the corresponding freeze frames. Once in this bubble, we fast bubble down right, buffer an upright demo, and then begin holding left so that we return to where we originally were. We maintain a horizontally neutral position the moment we make contact with this dash crystal, and dash up back into the bubble a moment later. Again, this is not buffered, but still very lenient. Next, we bubble upwards until we hit this crystal. We buffer a right demo in the given freeze frames and perform a reverse demo hyper by buffering a jump back to the left on the first possible frame. This will line us up with this dash crystal, at which point we perform a demo to the right, hit this block, and then climb jump up to this corner. After another subpixel reset, we full jump to the left, buffer an up demo upon hitting this crystal, and perform another dash bounce to the left. This one is slightly different from the others, however, because we buffer the jump on the first frame we can before we hit the crystal, and only buffer the left demo during the following freeze frames. After this, we immediately hold right, jump, and grab, and latch onto this dream zipper, where we also make contact with another dash crystal. We buffer a right dash, grab onto the other end of the block, and upon hitting the next crystal, demo to the left. This ultimately shifts us onto another dream zipper, which performs a coral clip. This is where an object pushes Madeline off screen, so the game teleports her to its other, on-screen end. In this case, we just need to begin holding left once we're on the stream zipper and will be moved as intended. Once the zipper pulls us to this dash crystal, we can demo through, grab the other end, and drop down. Once we're ready to begin the right side, we demo into this dream zipper and grab its other end. Once the dream zipper fully stops moving, we can dash into this bubble and move forward until we hit this double dash crystal. In the freeze frames, we buffer an up left dash, followed by a buffered left demo. We flow this into a reverse demo ultra by immediately holding right, buffering a jump, and then buffering a down right dash when hitting this crystal. We now need to buffer an up dash, but keep in mind that the first frame that Madeline can perform it is slightly after she hits the next crystal. We buffer an upright demo in the freeze frames of the next crystal, which keeps Madeline in a crouch state, and we buffer a climb jump after breaking through this block to crouch climb into this gap. Resetting our subpixels before this next part is very important. To do this, we simply dash upright into this platform. Now we hold grab, dash left, and buffer a jump in the freeze frames of the next crystal to get onto this wall with the correct vertical positioning. We then dash up and begin holding left, grab, and jump until we latch onto the stream zipper, which performs another coral clip. Once again, we just gotta hold right here and we'll be fine. Now, when the zipper returns back to the left and fully stops moving, we have to let go and buffer a jump so that we neutral off the very top of this tile. We then continue holding jump and remain horizontally neutral until we hit this dash crystal, at which point we buffer an upright demo into the dream zipper. Next, we buffer a down left dash and corner boost off the top of the dream zipper. If we continue holding left, jump, and grab, we'll latch perfectly onto this wall, at which point we can demo into it. As the block breaks, we hold right and receive an upward boost that pushes us against this wall, where we crouch climb into the above gap. Next, we perform a normal jump here, dash up left in the freeze frames of this crystal, fast fall by holding down until we hit this crystal, dash down left in its freeze frames, and then fall normally until we buffer a left dash at this crystal. We then enter this bubble, and are able to go up to the final portion of the room. An important note: after dashing into this dream block, do not move. The slowdown used in this cutscene can actually mess up your subpixel positioning if you do anything during it, making it completely impossible to perform the final inputs. For maximum safety, remain still until you make it to the top. And now we've made it to Don't Choke, the final set of inputs in the room. The section is very simple, but with nerves at their absolute peak, it's bound to be a challenge. After making it up to the right, we perform a reverse hyper dash and continue to hold jump. Upon hitting the first dash crystal, we buffer a down left dash in the freeze frames and subsequently buffer a corner boost off of this tile, making sure to hold down left the entire time. Once we hit this dash crystal, we let go of jump, and once we hit the subsequent double dash crystal, we buffer a coyote jump in the freeze frames to make it up to the leftmost wall. Finally, we dash twice into this wall to allow access to freeze frame buffers again, hold right, and jump off. While holding right, grab, and jump, we buffer an input from our second jump button to corner boost off of this tile, and at the very end, jump from this tile and buffer a right demo in the freeze frames of this dash crystal. Note that it's very important to avoid buffering this final jump too early, as it's pretty easy to accidentally kick off of the tile before the correct one instead. But with that, we make it into the bubble and ascend, and that's Venus. It's a crazy hard room, but a super engaging commitment. Everything is really consistent and learnable, and with enough time, any experienced player can make it through. If you're going at it, I wish you the best of luck. If you ever need more assistance, the Celeste Discord server is a great place to post questions and ask for help. Even if you're not looking for support, still consider checking the community out. It's super big and passionate, and there's a ton of resources and modded maps for all skill levels that you can try out completely for free, as long as you have the base game. With that, thank you for watching, and take care.